Hello, dear students. This is Abhijit Brahma from the Department of Business Administration, USTM. So, in one of the previous videos, we have seen the stages of marketing plan, right? Or marketing plan steps in general, which eventually turn out to be marketing stages as well. So, in this video, we're going to talk about the marketing stages in general, which with respect to the marketing plan, and also, we're going to look at some of the ethical considerations or ethical aspects that we should consider in the marketing stage, right? Or in a marketing campaign. So moving on to our topic, let us look at the stages of social marketing campaign briefly, right? So the first thing that we need to do is identify the behavior change, right? Meaning, what is the behavior that you want to address or change, right, among a particular among your market or among your target audience. So this is followed by your marketing research, meaning you must conduct your do your research first in order to understand what behavior, in order to identify the behavior that you want to change. You must do your research very properly, right? So we have already talked about the research, what types of research and what can you do to what types of research can you conduct and in what type of situations, etc. Right? Now, for example, increasing prenatal counsel among expectant mothers. This can be one of the behavior change that you're looking for, right? Or quitting of smoking habits, quitting of drug use or alcohol use, right? Or children abuse, etc. So there can be a lot of such social causes, mm, in other words, social products or behavior change that you might be looking for to target or to address, right? Now, once you've identified the behavior change, which is basically your product or your goal of the campaign, what you do next is identify your audience. Now, we have already seen in order to identify this. So, in each of the stages of marketing campaign, we must do our research properly, right? Research, doing a social or marketing research will what help us address a lot of questions or identify a lot of issues, a lot of factors responsible for each of the activities in each of the stages, right? So, while identifying our audience, the question deals with whose behavior do you want to change, right? That is your target audience. So, it may be that you want to change the behavior of several different groups. In that case, you may want to influence them in different ways to bring them closer to the desired behavior, right? Now, such groups are often separated or segmented by age, gender, level of education, race, and various other demographic factors, right? So, like we've already discussed, the population can be divided or can be segmented into different groups, which are known as segments, right? And out of those segments, uh, it's up to you or up to your idea, right, or up to your goal that which of the segments you want to actually focus on or target upon, right? Now you have two options. There is whether you want to focus all your time, money, energy, resources into one particular segment, right? That is only one specific group, or do you want to divide it or you want to target um, into or target different groups or subgroups, right? So the option is yours. The next stage is about, or the next step is about identifying the barriers to change. Once you have identified your audience, target audience, who do you want to target actually? It may be a particular group or different groups also, one or two groups as well, right? The next stage is about identifying the barriers. What are the barriers that your audience are facing, right, or your customers are facing? So these barriers can related to different factors. Now, in order to identify those barriers, you must conduct research again. You must try to understand your audience, which can be done through uh, surveys, through interviews, focus groups, or any other methods, right? Basically, you need to have an interaction with your audience in order to understand their problems and the barriers that they're facing. Now, you can ask questions. For example, do pregnant women feel uncomfortable at the clinic area, or are they made to feel stupid when they talk to the doctor? Right? You may consider a particular village, right, where maybe there's an issue of teen pregnancy, right? So, in order to address the particular issue or problem, you can ask these questions. That is, whether the pregnant women or pregnant teenagers are uh, they feel uncomfortable while visiting the clinic, or are they made to feel stupid even if they visit? Are they made to feel stupid while talking to the doctor? If the doctor asks very stupid and silly questions to them, or the other problem could be the distance of the clinic from their residential area, right? That is, they are made to, or they have to travel too far to get an access to the clinic or good doctors, or can they not take the time away from the jobs, right? So there can be different factors, different reasons that is probably making it difficult for them to adopt this particular behavior or to you know uh, do a particular action which is being recommended through your campaign. So after identifying that barrier, what you aim to do is to reduce those barriers. Now you must plan ways to make it easier, more accessible, and more attractive. So we're talking about the desired behavior or the behavior change. How do we reduce those barriers? By making your particular recommended behavior attractive or accessible, right? And easily available to your audience, by not making it hard for them to get an access or to adopt that particular behavior. The question here is, can the clinic stay open for longer hours, right? Or can there be another branch open in the locality itself, right? Instead of the audiences having to travel so far to get access to doctors or the clinic, can it be open somewhere or can it be established somewhere in the locality itself? Can physicians and nurses be better trained to discuss problems with women, right? It's not only about treating them physically, but maybe they also need to be trained how to talk to those teenagers, right? So this step might even be taken a step further. For example, your organization might provide incentives for making and sustaining changes. So mothers who come to the clinic regularly through their pregnancy might receive coupons for free baby foods, right? So these are some strategies, some boosters that your campaign could use in order to attract those uh, people, or let's say your target audience, right? Next is to publicize both the benefits of a change and also your efforts to make change easier in a way that it will draw people to take advantage of your efforts. Now that you have aimed to reduce the barriers, you must also highlight the benefits that you will be getting if they adopt this behavior or if they perform a particular action, right? So these benefits should be so clear, so overpowered compared to the burden, that they will be enticed or they will be attracted to adopt it. Right? Okay. So this is uh, the stages of marketing campaign overall, or briefly, in a very brief manner, right? So people need to understand the benefits of the behavior. Again, take the same example, a pregnant woman will probably want to do what's best for her child, right? but may not know that she needs an extra iron during her pregnancy. So it's up to your organization or your campaign to inform her about that, right? Now, once you have all your strategies, all your plans sorted out, you need to test it or test your idea on a small number of people first before actually implementing it on a large scale, right? On an entire market or on an entire target audience, you must try to first test it among a small sample in order to know the effectiveness or the feasibility of your plan or your idea, right? And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you might want to modify it again according to their needs, right? Okay. Now let us talk about the ethical considerations in social marketing, right? So we're talking about ethics here. Now, ethics has come to become a very important topic in marketing, especially because the marketers have been criticized and accused of not being very ethical, especially when it comes to the marketing practices, right? For example, in advertisements and packaging, they often tend to be misleading according to the criticisms of public or maybe many researchers as well, right? So what is the need to study this? What is the need of ethics, right? So before going to the needs, let us try to understand what do we mean by ethics. Ethics, we all have been hearing about it. Why is it necessary? This basically, in simple words, is basically uh, a conscience, right? It's about what is right and what is wrong, or in other words, what is good and what is bad, right? So ethics helps us in deciding the right course of action to avoid the bad, to avoid the wrongs, and follow the right path or do something right, right? Okay. So due to the sensitivity of some issues in particular that social marketers are asked to address, ethical considerations are so very important, particularly in social marketing, right? Besides other marketing, other branches of marketing such as commercial marketing, etc., it is more specifically very important in social marketing because here we are directly dealing with people, directly dealing with the society, the environment, right? So it has become of utmost importance here. Now, there are many criticisms of marketers, like I said. For example, commercial marketers have been criticized for using allegedly unethical methods to target vulnerable populations, right? Or simply using deceptive techniques against consumers in general. Now, we can see a lot of other examples. For example, creating greed and dissatisfaction among customers, misleading the customers because it does not give a full picture of the product. Certain advertisements, right, or promotional activities do not give a detailed picture of what the product is about. It just shows the good part, right? It just shows the benefit and not the side effects, or let's say, not not the problems of it, right? What problems it might cause, for instance. It can be also manipulative, right? So marketing, since it's mostly about communicating your idea, right? The most part of it is about communicating and delivering your product, right? So it can be manipulative in a lot of ways because it persuades people to buy things they don't need. So marketing era or the marketing industry has become so competitive that even if there is no need, sometimes no need of a product or a service, the marketers try or tend to create this need among themselves, right? So it can be sometimes manipulative. Okay. And it can be also a waste of valuable resources that could be spent in the better causes, right? For example, it is said that the global Coca-Cola marketing budget could make a real difference to worldwide child poverty. Sometimes it mostly so happens in commercial marketing that big organizations, big retailers, they spend a lot in marketing activities, that such cost could serve up to a very noble cause, right? So there are lots of criticisms. It is further accused of focusing on selected target markets only, often those that are wealthy or privileged, and it basically neglects the other groups. So this is a major concern, major accusation that the marketing is involved in, right? That the marketers only focus on specific target audience, which sometimes are not very justified, right? Uh, Let us see one example here. For example, tobacco companies and alcohol marketers. They are accused of targeting vulnerable audience such as children, the teenagers, and socio-economically disadvantaged groups. So you can see the majority of the population of smokers belong to the teenagers group, right? Or socio-economically disadvantaged groups, correct? So marketers are being accused of selecting their target audiences who are vulnerable, basically, right? Okay. So it is also being accused of being intrusive. So television advertisements enter our homes, disrupting our leisure time, while billboards distract our attention on the road. Hope you understand that. Okay. Moving on, a researcher known as Brankert in 2002 identified and comprehensively analyzed three ethical challenges which are specific to social marketing. First, he asked who decides what social problems should be addressed and who decides whether if it is a problem. So Brankett, he asked three major questions which relates to the ethical challenges. First, who decides what social problem should be addressed? Who decides whether it's a problem? Right? There is no such standard or no particular definition to that. Second, he questioned the rationale that social marketers use theories and models of behavior change, right? More suitable to the consumer behavior process than to solving social problems that extend beyond an individual's range. So, like we have studied the behavior change theories and models, we mostly could see the factors which have been identified and which are responsible for behavior change or influencing the behavior change of individuals, but those are mostly controllable, or let's say within an individual's range of control, right? But there are factors which individuals cannot control, or maybe some certain external factors which even we do not have any control over. So there might be a problem there, right? When you cannot address those factors. Third is we ask whether social marketers are acting ethically if they fail to recognize the autonomy of the target markets, their right to full participation in solving a problem issue, rather than just having a solution marketed to them. Right? So this is another important question that he raises: whether the people themselves are not capable enough, right? Do you necessarily have to impose a desire or recommend a behavior to them instead of asking a solution or asking maybe a suggestion from them itself, right? So there are questions, a lot of questions that arises on this aspect as well, which needs to be addressed. Okay, so now let us try to understand the meaning of ethics in a bit more detail, right? So the term ethics is used in the broad sense to denote a moral philosophy or to refer to a system of moral or value judgments. So it is basically the study of what people ought to do or feel they ought to do. Like I've already mentioned, it states about what is right and what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. So it's basically one science that tells us apart from these two factors, right? So another important factor that can help us identify uh, the ethical aspect, right, or what is which factor or which actions are ethical is about the legal aspect, right? So when there is a legal issue, our way is clearer, which means if something is legal or if something is lawfully correct, right, then it can be regarded as ethical, those actions. For example, it is against the law to manufacture and sell illegal drugs, and many would even agree that it's unethical to do so, correct? So something which is illegal, something which is against the law or unlawful can be regarded or considered as unethical, whereas it is illegal to manufacture and sell cigarettes, but not everyone would agree that it is ethical to do so, right? So even if something is legal, that does not mean that it is ethical as well. So some legal things, some legal actions can also be unethical, but whatever is illegal, whatever is against the law, unlawful, that can sure be unethical. So the legal aspect or the law can be one factor that can help us identify the ethical actions, right? Now, through ethics, we attempt to come up with a system of rules based on commonly agreed values, right? So a system is built, or like we follow a system which are based on commonly agreed values, right? That we basically follow. Okay. So here, Smith in the year 1999 and 2001, according to his research, he makes some important points, right? That any ethical decision is contextual. Now, several factors and ways in which they interrelate, it needs to be considered. So Smith identified certain factors. For instance, here the actor or provider, usually a government agency or non-profit organization. So by the term actor or provider, it means uh, the agency, right, or the individual or the organization who is providing for the idea or the product or the behavior, right? So how similar is the actor to the audience, and what are the actor's motives? If there are several motives, are there any conflict, right? Now, this can be true of joint ventures where one partner may be profit driven, right? So number one factor that needs to be considered, that needs to be carefully examined, is the actor or the provider, right? How similar, how related he is or it is to the audience, and what are the motives of the provider or the actor, or in other words, you can also call them as social marketers in this context. So if there are more than one motives of the provider, then are those motives in any conflict? These things, these questions must be properly addressed and considered. The second factor being the offering or the product itself, that is the behavior change, right? So the idea that is being sold, such as maybe immunization, blood donation, or quitting of smoking, quitting of drug use, etc. So this is the offering, right? That the actor or the provider is like offering the product. So it is basically the idea or the behavior change, correct? So ethical products are safe, accessible, and not too costly in terms of psychological as well as financial cost. So we must consider that the product that the provider or the actor is offering, right, or the idea that the marketer is offering, it should be safe, accessible, and it should be cost effective, right? Or its price should not be too high. We have already discussed about the price aspect, right? The marketing mix aspects. So the pricing should be as low as possible, which will facilitate your audience to adopt a particular behavior, right? Okay, so the next factor is the act or the program itself. So that act or the program that you're conducting, right? How truthful it is and how fairly does it represent people. So this is another very important aspect that needs to be considered as well. Now, the context in which the act will occur, when and where the communication will take place. Right? This is another factor. There are different ethical problems if the context is within a school or in mass media. Right? So we must keep in mind all of these factors. Who is delivering the product? Who is offering it? Uh, how relevant he or she is to the audience, and how costly is it, or what price do the customers or the audience have to pay, right? And the context in which the product lies. All of this must be considered. Now, for example, for the audience, what are the demographics of the intended and any unintended audiences? So the demographics must be studied very carefully. We'll have a detailed study and discussion about the segments, the audiences, about the population in the coming videos. So does the intended audience have the resources to understand and act on the communication, right? Who else may see this communication and think it has relevance to them, particularly when using mass media, right? So these are the questions related to the audience. So we must understand their demographics, their backgrounds, and whether do the audience have enough resources to adopt that particular behavior or not, right? And what sort of communication do they are are they comfortable in, and are the messages relevant to them, etc. These are the questions that must be addressed and looked after in context of the audience. The next factor is the consequences, right? The consequences may be intended or unintended for both audiences. Now, if the consequences are beneficial, does it make the campaign ethical, even if it was less than truthful? Very important question that is raised here. Does the end justify the means, as the utilitarians believe? Okay. So it's about the consequences, whether be it intended or unintended. So if the consequences are beneficial to some a particular group, right? Does it make it ethical? So well, it may not be always the case, right? So we must examine whether it is truthful, right? Whether it is fair. So then there are a lot of other aspects to judge that situation, right? Depending on various other factors. Now there's another study done by Laxiniak and Murphy in 1993, who recommended that a checklist of 8 questions be used to assess whether an action is ethical or not. So these are the questions that one might ask, or a social marketer might ask himself, right? Or in that particular situation, to confirm or to ensure if the action that they are going to adopt or follow is ethical or not. So the question goes like, is there a law against it? We have already seen the factor of law. So it must be supporting a law, right? Or it must not be against the law, whatever actions you have suggested or is recommended to be adopted. Is it contrary to accept moral duties, right? Is it contrary to the accepted moral duties, including fidelity, gratitude, justice, non-maleficence, and beneficence, right? Or is it contrary to any special obligations of the organization, right? So it should not also be against any justice. It should always be fair and justified, right? And it should not be also contrary or go against any obligations of the organization or the provider, right? Now, is there any intention to cause harm? That should also be noticed, and is it likely that major harm will result, right? Or is there a better alternative that would result in greater benefits? Another questions can be, are there rights likely to be infringed, including property rights, privacy rights, and unalienable consumer rights, including the rights to information, to be heard, to have a choice, and to have a remedy? Is anyone left worse off than before? And if so, if the person is already disadvantaged? So these are the questions. To sum up, in general, we can say that no rights of individuals or any human beings in a group or in your particular segment should be violated, right? And there should not be any major harm at all in the first place, and there should be, in other words, there should be least harm, if any. If there is any harm at all or any side effects at all, it should be least or very negligible. So there should not be any harm, and there should be always greater benefits to the majority of the people, right? And we should also consider if there are other alternatives that are providing probably greater benefits than the alternative or the course of action that you have chosen or adopted, right? Now, as we have seen this question, if the answer to any of these 8 questions is yes, then the action should be reconsidered, right? Then there might be a question of ethics, or there might be a doubt that the action might be unethical, right? Okay. So we can have a glimpse of the characteristics of ethical actions. They are not only activities to serve others, but also the inner temperament of the mind. This gives importance to helping others. So your actions must give importance to helping others. They are not the instrumental value, but these actions are performed for prosperity, success, and sound decisions. But these are also used to avoid prohibited constructive actions and to promote obligatory and optional actions. These actions are also performed as duties or responsibilities of individuals. Correct? Now, lastly, let us look at few ethical norms. So, as marketers, this is our sole responsibility that we do not cause any harm. We avoid harms or harmful actions at all means. We should also foster the trust in marketing system, right? Like we have seen many accusations or criticisms by the public in general. So that kind of situation we need to avoid by fostering trust among the people about the marketing system, right? Lastly, we must also embrace all the ethical values. We can start by building relationships and enhance consumer confidence in the integrity of marketing by identifying and affirming the core and key ethical values, some of which can be honesty, responsibility, fairness, respect, transparency, and citizenship. So I hope we have got a fair enough idea about ethics, ethical actions, ethical characteristics and norms, what can differentiate us from unethical practices, unethical marketing practices, and how as a marketer we can uh, play a responsible role, right, in the marketing activities or be any social activities. So having said that, this is the end of today's video. So hope we meet in the next video. Till then, take care. Thank you.